on daily fantasy football, look no further.
He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl!
The stats have been compiled. The research is done. So come on and win a mill with D-Will.
Hey, it is week 3 NFL Daily Fantasy Sports. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. I finally won me some money, y'all. I finally won me some money. If you was listening to me, that probably means you won you some money last week too. Maybe or maybe not. I didn't win any of the big money. Won, $275. It was some smaller money, but I won some money. And that's what counts. That is what really counts. We're getting ready to jump right into week 3 so we can win some more money. But before we do that, I got to give a shout out to our sponsors. Sponsor being DirecTV. That's right. You can get DirecTV's NFL Sunday ticket and watch every game every Sunday. All you got to do is call 855-946-6343. Again, that's 855-946-6343. Tell them D-Will sent you and tell them that you want to watch every game every Sunday with NFL Sunday ticket. All right? They're going to get you taken care of. So let's jump right into it. We're going to start with our quarterbacks. Okay, so everybody's asking me, hey D-Will, are you finally going to jump on the Patrick Mahomes bandwagon? Are you finally going to jump on the Ryan Fitzpatrick bandwagon? You hadn't talked about them all year, but are you going to do what everybody else is doing and jump on the bandwagon? And let me just say this right quick. I just have to say this. Last week I told you to pick Phillip Rivers as a quarterback. Last week Rivers completed 23 of 27 passes. He had 256 yards and he had 3 touchdowns against the Bills last week. So I don't think that my picks for quarterback have really been all that bad. But if you're asking me to give you an analysis of Patrick Mahomes or an analysis of Ryan Fitzpatrick, then I have to say, yes, I really like them. Now, Ryan Fitzpatrick is not on the main slate for this particular week. And if you're in a regular fantasy football league, I'm not really sure, as far as a league, not playing daily fantasy sports, I'm not really sure that Ryan Fitzpatrick is the pick for you quite yet. There's still some things that have to be worked out before I really know if it's something that you just have to pick up. But we're talking about daily fantasy sports, and on a week-to-week basis, I can see Ryan Fitzpatrick, I believe he has a Thursday game if I'm not mistaken. I can actually see him being a good choice, especially if you're playing like just a Monday and Thursday game or something like that where you want to be able to pick up some points. He's actually a very good pick. Now, Patrick Mahomes is on the main slate, and he is a quarterback that I say that you should go after for this week. He's playing against San Francisco. Not that San Francisco just has the worst defense, but I do expect for him to be able to throw the ball very effectively against San Francisco. And look, Patrick Mahomes in college once threw for 88 attempts. 88 attempts. He had over 700 yards in one game. So what I do know is that Patrick Mahomes has a lot of trust in his arm. He's been using it. That also means that as a gunslinger, he's probably going to throw some interceptions, and he doesn't really have any yet, or he doesn't have any yet. So I expect for that to come at some time. However, I do see picking Patrick Mahomes this week. I already have him in one of the games that I'm playing, and I really do like him. I also, in the very same game, like Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think San Francisco is going to go down easily. I think that they're going to want to put some points on the board. Kansas City's defense is giving up points in the air, and I don't see why Jimmy G wouldn't be able to do the exact same thing. He's getting a lot more as the year is going on. He's starting to get into that last year's form where he's actually putting points on the board, and he's really not that expensive. I mean, you got to be able to look at a player that's only going to cost you $6,500 that's moving up. I actually like that opportunity. I don't think I would take that over Patrick Mahomes. As a matter of fact, I know I will not. However, if you were looking at a situation where you were trying to take a quarterback, Jimmy G is not a bad one when you want to try to keep your price down. A lot of people are saying, hey, with the quarterbacks, I want to keep my price down so that I can still afford some of the bigger players at running back and wide receiver. Now, Jimmy G is 6,500, and if I just had to take a quarterback in that range, I'm probably going to take Kirk Cousins this week from Minnesota. The reason? Well, the same reason I picked Phillip Rivers last week. He's playing Buffalo, and Buffalo is horrible, and I expect for Kirk Cousins to put points on the board. So if I had to pick for two this week, I'm going to say Patrick Mahomes and Kirk Cousins, because I expect for those two guys to put points on the board, and that's going to be my pick. So yes, if you want to say I'm on the Patrick Mahomes train, then yes, I am, especially for this week. It's the great thing about daily fantasy sports is you can jump on somebody different every week. So there you have it for this week. Now we're going to move on to our running backs. Okay, so for the running backs, we know Alvin Kamara, the Melvin Gordons, the Todd Gurleys. We know those guys are going to do what they do. So what I want to do is I want to talk about running backs that are under $6,500. So you're going to pick who it is that you want in that top level. But for that second running back, or if you're going heavy on wide receivers and you need some smaller or some cheaper rather running backs who are still going to score some points, then I want to point your attention to a few people. First of all, Adrian Peterson is still, in my opinion, somebody that's going to score you some points. They're playing against Green Bay. If you're going to go with Adrian Peterson, then obviously in some people's opinion, Chris Thompson is going to be a higher choice. Now, Chris Thompson is $6,300. Adrian Peterson is $4,900. Right now, there's about a 6-point difference between the two. I still say that they're going to go back and forth. So if you want to be able to get some points, I think Adrian Peterson has just as good enough of a chance to actually put 20 points on the board this week as Chris Thompson does. That's just my opinion. Now, if I had to pick one, matter of fact, in my league, I actually picked Chris Thompson, but that's because I had the money afforded for that. Now, if you need a cheaper running back under $5,000 that you think is going to still score 20 points, I think Adrian Peterson is definitely a really good one. And so the Washington running backs are definitely somebody that you want to pay attention to. Now, there's also somebody else that has come to my attention. He is on the radar now, everybody's radar if you really think about it. Matt Breida, San Francisco. I really didn't know much about the guy. I do remember him, but I didn't really know much about him. I didn't talk a whole lot about him. At $5,400, he's definitely going to get the opportunity to score points, especially with the injuries over there. He had 11 rushes, 138 yards, but the key is that he actually got to touch the ball 11 times. Again, this week they're playing against Kansas City. Now, the thing about Kansas City is, again, their offense is on fire, but people are scoring, obviously, against them. So I kind of like that move, being able to go with Matt Breida. The other thing that I really like, because we talked about Alvin Kamara, we talked about Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley. Those are the guys that are going to be at the top of the list as far as fantasy points are going. But Saquon Barkley, even though the Giants are horrible, I guess is the best way to put it, Saquon Barkley has this ability to never get tackled by the first person, and they love throwing him the little swing pass out there just because of it. And so he's getting touches. I mean, he gets a lot of touches, even though his rushing yardage isn't that high. For instance, against the Cowboys, he touched the ball 11 times and only had 28 yards, but he caught 14 passes. They threw it to him 16 times, and he had 80 yards in the air. So those are points that, if you're in the, we're talking about daily fantasy sports here. We're talking about PPR points and getting the points off of the catch. Saquon Barkley is one of the better at it. So you have to look at Saquon Barkley as one of those opportunities to score 20 plus points from the running back position. And honestly, he's only $7,600 compared to the 9,000s for Alvin. It was $9,500 for Alvin Kamara, $9,200 for Todd Gurley. He is a little bit cheaper, a little bit more expensive than Melvin Gordon is, but for $7,600, that's somebody that you can effectively know that, okay, I can spend this $7,600 and I'm going to get 20 points. And that's kind of one of the things that I do when you really start talking about trying to get to where you need to be able to make some money. I'm looking at every position being able to get me 20 points. Can I get 20 points out of every position? That's the question. If you can get 20 points out of 9 players, I think there's 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, I'm not going crazy. Out of 9 players, 20 points out of every position, including your defense, which is sometimes more difficult to do, then you're looking at 180 points. And 180 points is hard to beat, no matter where you go, no matter who you're playing. If you're playing head up, if you're playing against, for one of the bigger points, sometimes I saw someone put in just 25 cents. They were going after, I think it's a $300 or $500 prize where they just put in a quarter. 180 points actually got them $300 for a quarter, investment, basically. They put 25 cents in. So again, if you can get those 20 points out of a position, Saquon Barkley is going to get you those 20 points out of the running back position for the $7,600. So those are going to be my choices for running back. Let's move over to our wide receivers. All right, so for our wide receivers, we have the natural high-end players, like I mentioned, in running back. So you got the Michael Thomases, you got Tyreek Hill, who is absolutely killing the game this year so far. DeAndre Hopkins, Odell Beckham, Julio Jones. I mean, those are some of the big names that are at the top of the list. I am going to avoid all the $8,000 and above. I will say this about the $8,000 and above. I am not a fan this year of Odell Beckham Jr. Not because I don't like Odell. Odell is one of the better wide receivers in the game. I am just not a fan of his offensive line, which means Eli Manning doesn't really have a whole lot of time to throw the ball to anybody. The only thing they can really get is a few jump balls, a few opportunities, and Odell Beckham isn't a guarantee, especially for $8,200. To me, at $8,200, I need to be able to guarantee somewhere around 30 points in a game, and right now he's not getting that. He's getting actually less than 20 as his average, and so I'm definitely, for $8,200, not a fan of picking Odell Beckham. I'm also not a fan of picking DeAndre Hopkins. I do understand that last week he actually had over 100 yards receiving. I think they threw the ball to him 11 times, but I'm just not a fan of his at $8,300. I think that's way too high. So the only ones over $8,000 that I would even go towards would be Tyreek Hill and Michael Thomas. I do think that if I'm going to spend $8,000 or above, $8,500, $8,900, I'm looking for 30 points out of that player, especially because that means that somewhere else down the line I'm going to have to really take an opportunity on somebody who is cheap, and that person is probably going to be one of those hit or miss guys that may get 20 and may not get 20. I need to make that up in my wide receiver if I pick one of those, being able to get 30 points. Now, another guy, or two guys actually, same team that I like, Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs. They're playing for Minnesota. They're playing against Buffalo. I love both of them. Stephon Diggs is $7,700. Adam Thielen is $7,800. Any of them, I feel like this week, both of them, but I know at least one of them is going to get you 30 points. And you can do that for about $1,000 cheaper than the before mentioned two guys. And so I really, really, really like to go with them. If you want to try to keep it down a little bit as far as cost is concerned, then I like Will Fuller. I like Will Fuller. I do. I think that he right now is doing a better job than DeAndre Hopkins, and he's only $5,900. That's somebody that I can take, and I know right now he's averaging 28 points a game. I feel like I can get my 20 points out of him at $5,900. They're playing against the Giants. The Giants really... they let the Cowboys, who the week before didn't seem like they'd be able to throw a pass over 20 yards, and they let them score on the first play of the game with a bomb that I think may have been 60 yards or something. I'm not really sure as far as how far it was, but if the Cowboys can do it, I feel like the Houston Texans are going to be able to do it. And so Will Fuller in that situation for $5,900 becomes one of those players that I feel is going to get the opportunities, and he's getting targeted. Now, he does have a hamstring issue that you may want to watch just to make sure, but they threw the ball to him 9 times. He caught 8 of them, and he had over 100 yards. So for the cost that you have there, I love that. I am still a fan of Emmanuel Sanders. I've been telling you this almost every week, to go with Emmanuel Sanders. I still feel like Emmanuel Sanders is someone that you can go with. And I also feel like, again, Geronimo Allison, for those who haven't been paying attention, he's going to be, even last week, he didn't have a just huge breakout game, but he did get touches. I mean, they didn't throw the ball to him, if I'm not mistaken, until the second half. And then when they did, he actually caught 6 passes, and that was just in the second half. I don't expect for Green Bay to make the same mistake this week. I think they're going to get him the ball and give him the ball early. Again, for $4,500, he's a great opportunity. And it may be someone that you team up with one of the more expensive guys. So if you decide, hey, look, I want to go with Tyreek Hill, but he's $8,500, so I need to put somebody a little bit cheaper with him, or you're looking for somebody to put into your flex position, Geronimo Allison is one of those players for $4,500 that still has a chance to get you to that 20-point mark, and that's where we're going. I also like, for $5,600, Keenan Cole for Jacksonville. He's going up against Tennessee. Tennessee is one of those teams, if you look up the stats, that is giving up points against wide receivers. So I feel that Keelan Cole is, or Keelan, not Keenan, but Keelan Cole is going to be somebody else that will be able to get you to the range that you need to get to. And he's only $5,600, so you got to love it, right? All right, so let's move on now to the tight end position. So at tight end, I told you last week about Will Dissly. Guess what? I still like Will Dissly. He's a perfect choice to me for tight end. Jared Cook is still proving me wrong. Even though last week I told you I would pick him, even though I didn't think he was going to continue, I'm going to say the same thing this week. I'd pick him. I don't know how long he's going to be able to do it, but for this week, I would still pick him. I also like George Kittle, again, for San Francisco, simply for the matchup this week. I like George Kittle only for the matchup, and he's going to allow you to keep your points down, or keep your finances down, help you maybe be able to pick a bigger player in another position. As far as defenses are concerned, let me be honest with you. I'm picking defenses based upon, unfortunately, what I can afford after I do everything else. It's really hard for your defenses to get you 20 points, something I mentioned earlier. And you have different players who are, or different teams rather, who are getting you 17 points and 15 points. Depending on, the game and the matchup, you can kind of look at some of those things. But a lot of times, the range isn't all that different, and you'd have to make the perfect choice. And sometimes I'm just picking a defense just because I needed to get one for $2,200, and that $2,200 was going to allow me to afford the other positions that I have. Maybe not the best or the solid advice. It just happens to be what I'm doing. So I got to tell you what I'm doing, because I actually won last week, and I expect to try to win some more money this week. I'm hoping you win some money too, because this is Win a Meal with D. Will. That's what we're hoping that you do. And I'm out. I'll see y'all next week.